Before we begin, take a slow, gentle breath. If your heart has been feeling heavy lately, not because of any event, not because of any person, but simply because something inside feels tired, know this. Your heart is speaking. Let us listen to it together today. There are moments in life when the heart begins to feel heavy without any clear reason. Nothing dramatic has happened, no crisis has come, yet inside your chest a weight quietly settles. You wake up with it, you carry it through the day, and even when you are surrounded by people, this heaviness sits silently within you like an unspoken truth. You may not tell anyone about it because even you don't fully understand it. You just feel it like a quiet pressure, like a tiredness that sleep cannot erase, like a burden that has no name. This heaviness is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the voice of your inner being trying to get your attention. Because the mind never slows down on its own. The body never stops on its own. Only the heart knows when you have carried too much for too long. And the heart speaks through weight. A heavy heart is not a failure. A heavy heart is a message. It is telling you that somewhere deep inside there is a part of you that has been ignored, a truth you have avoided, a pain you have denied, a feeling you pushed aside because life demanded you to keep moving. But nothing you bury inside you ever disappears. It waits. It waits for silence. It waits for stillness. It waits for the moment when your outer world becomes quiet enough for your inner world to speak. This is why heaviness comes in the quiet hours. When you lay down to sleep, when you sit alone for a moment, when the distractions fade, it appears because now your heart finally has the space to show you what you have been carrying. This weight is not new. It is old, very old. Some of it comes from yesterday. Some of it comes from years ago. Some of it comes from childhood. And some of it comes from wounds you never had the language to express. Your heart remembers everything the mind forgot. Moments where you were hurt but stayed silent. Times when you needed support but acted strong. Feelings you pushed down because there was no one to receive them. Dreams you let die. Parts of you abandoned to survive. Pain you swallowed to protect others. And loneliness you pretended wasn't there. All of these live quietly inside the heart. And when the heart can no longer carry the weight alone, it sends a message, a soft heaviness, a quiet ache, a pull inward. This heaviness is not here to break you. It is here to open you. It is the beginning of healing, because healing never begins with joy. Healing begins with honesty, and honesty requires feeling. When the heart becomes heavy, it is asking you to slow down, to breathe, to listen, to stop running from yourself, to stop pretending you are fine, to create space for what is real inside you. You may try to distract yourself with work, with people, with noise, with entertainment. But the moment you stop, the heaviness returns, because it does not want distraction, it wants awareness. Awareness is the medicine the heart has been waiting for, not fixing, not forcing, not solving, simply seeing. The moment you turn your attention inward, even for a brief second, you begin to feel the truth of your own heart. And the heart does not need much. It only needs your presence, your willingness to be with what you feel without running away. This presence is healing, because the heart breaks only when it is left alone. The heart becomes heavy only when it carries everything without your awareness. Once you sit with your heaviness, not as a problem to solve, but as a child to comfort, something changes inside you. The weight does not increase, the weight softens. You begin to see that the heaviness you feel is not one thing, it is many small things that were never understood, never expressed, never released, memories that were never healed, disappointments that were never mourned, words you needed to say but never said, love you needed but never received, tears that formed but never fell. All of them sit inside the heart, like stones collecting over time. And now life is asking you to finally pick them up with awareness, with compassion, with gentleness. Your heaviness is not a punishment. It is an invitation. An invitation to meet yourself, to understand yourself, to heal yourself, to become whole again. Because you cannot transcend a pain, you refuse to feel. And you cannot release the burden you refuse to look at. The heart does not heal by forgetting. The heart heals by remembering the moments that shaped you, remembering the wounds that silenced you, remembering the truths you abandoned, remembering the parts of yourself that were left behind. This remembering is not painful. It is freeing, because every time you allow yourself to feel something you once buried, the weight begins to melt. Slowly, gently, naturally, the heart heals through awareness, not avoidance. And now, in this moment, as you sit with your heaviness, you are doing the most courageous thing. You are listening to your own heart. You are turning inward, toward the truth, toward the silence, toward the healing that has been waiting for you. This is the beginning of release. This is the beginning of lightness. This is the beginning of your return to yourself. As you sit with the heaviness inside your heart, something begins to shift, not outside you, but within. At first, the heaviness feels like a solid wall, something dense and unmoving. But as your awareness slowly touches it, the wall begins to soften. Because heaviness is not the problem, running from heaviness is the problem. When you run, the weight grows. When you resist, the weight tightens. But when you meet it with awareness, even gently, it begins to unfold. The heart responds to attention the way a flower responds to sunlight. It opens slowly. You begin to feel layers beneath the heaviness, layers you never noticed before. Beneath the weight there is sadness. Beneath the sadness there is loneliness. Beneath the loneliness there is longing. And beneath the longing there is truth, the truth of who you are and what you need. The heart feels heavy when you abandon your truth. The heart feels heavy when you carry pain that was never yours. The heart feels heavy when you try to be strong for too long. The heart feels heavy when you pretend you don't hurt. But now, as your awareness expands, you begin to see something clearly. Your heart is not tired. Your pretending is tired. Your silence is tired. Your masks are tired. The roles you have played for others are tired. Your heart has been waiting patiently for you to stop being who the world needs you to be and finally become who you are. This tiredness, this heaviness, this weight, it is the beginning of truth. People think heaviness means something is wrong, but heaviness often means something is finally right. It means the heart is ready to be honest. It means the heart is ready to let go. It means the heart is ready to heal. Healing begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. And heaviness is the first sign that the truth wants to rise. You may not know what the truth is yet. You may not know what the pain is asking for. But awareness does not need answers. It only needs presence. As you sit with the heaviness, without pushing it away, without judging it, without bargaining with it, you begin to feel a deeper layer, a layer that does not hurt but feels tender, vulnerable, human. You realize that the heaviness inside you is not a failure. It is a sign that you are sensitive, alive, open. The world teaches you to numb your heart. Awareness teaches you to feel it. And feeling is not weakness. Feeling is intelligence. A heart that can feel is a heart that can heal. A heart that can heal is a heart that can expand. A heart that can expand is a heart that can love. You begin to understand that the weight you carry is not just emotional. It is energetic. Every time you swallowed your words, the weight grew. Every time you hid your tears, the weight grew. Every time you wanted comfort but asked for nothing, the weight grew. Every time you pretended to be okay when you were breaking inside, the weight grew. But awareness does not ask you to remove all the weight at once. Awareness asks you to touch it gently. You touch the heaviness with your breath. You touch the heaviness with kindness. You touch the heaviness with patience. You touch the heaviness without the urge to fix it. This touching begins to dissolve the long-held tension. You start noticing what the heaviness is protecting. Because heaviness is not just pain, it is protection. It protects the parts of you that were never seen. It protects the emotions you never expressed. It protects the child inside you who learned to suffer quietly. This is why the heart feels tight. This is why the chest feels pressured. This is why breathing feels heavy. You are no longer carrying the weight of one moment. You are carrying the weight of years. And now, awareness is peeling these layers one by one. Awareness does not force the heart to open. Awareness gives the heart permission to open. And slowly, very slowly, the heart begins to release. A breath becomes easier. The chest becomes softer. The mind becomes quieter. The emotions become clearer. You begin to see that the heaviness is actually movement. It is your heart releasing what has been trapped for so long. It is your heart exhaling after years of holding everything in. And as the weight begins to loosen, you feel a small space inside your chest, a space that was not there before. This space is peace. Even if it is small, it is real. This is how healing begins. Not with big dramatic changes, but with tiny spaces of peace between the waves of heaviness. Every time you breathe into your heart, the space grows. Every time you stay with the feeling instead of running, the space grows. Every time you choose awareness over avoidance, the space grows. This space is where light enters. This space is where love returns. This space is where your true self awakens. You begin to understand that the heaviness was not a punishment. It was a doorway. A doorway to your deeper self. A doorway to your hidden truth. A doorway to emotional freedom. And as you walk through this doorway, you feel something you have not felt in a long time. Your own presence. You are here. You are feeling. You are healing. You are returning to yourself. As you continue to sit with your heaviness, something even deeper begins to reveal itself. You start to understand that emotional weight is not a single feeling. It is a collection of many forgotten feelings woven together. It is not one story. It is the echo of every story you never told. It is not one moment. It is the accumulation of all the moments where you needed tenderness but received silence, where you needed comfort but chose strength, where you needed rest but kept going. Your heart remembers every time you betrayed yourself just to survive. This heaviness is not random. It has shape. It has memory. It has roots. And as your awareness deepens, you begin to see those roots clearly for the first time. You begin to see how much of your heaviness comes from responsibilities you took long before you were ready. How much comes from being the strong one when you actually needed someone to hold you? How much comes from pretending you were fine when your soul was exhausted? How much comes from carrying everyone emotionally while no one truly carried you? And perhaps the deepest layer of heaviness is this: you never allowed yourself to break. You held everything together even when your inner world was falling apart. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You stayed calm when your heart was trembling. You said, "I am okay," so many times that the world believed it, and eventually you believed it too. Heaviness forms when you hide your pain from the world for too long. But now, as you gently look inside, the truth begins to rise to the surface. Not to overwhelm you, but to free you, because the heart cannot release what you refuse to acknowledge. And now, awareness has opened a space where truth can breathe again. You begin to see that your heaviness is not a weakness. It is a message from the deepest part of your being saying, "Please stop running. Please stay with me. Please hear me." For the first time, you are listening. And in this listening, your heart begins to trust you again. Trust is the real healing. Not techniques, not methods, not positive thinking. Trust. The moment your heart feels you are finally present with it, not forcing, not escaping, not numbing, something powerful begins to happen. The heart begins to open. This opening is slow. It is gentle. It feels like a soft crack, a small shift. Not dramatic, not loud, but real. You feel a small warmth where earlier there was only tightness. You feel a small softness where earlier there was pressure. You feel a small movement in a place that felt frozen. This is not the heaviness increasing. This is the heaviness melting. Because when awareness touches pain, pain does not grow. Pain transforms. You begin to feel emotions rising that you thought were long gone. A sadness from years ago. A disappointment you never faced. A loneliness you buried. A wound you ignored. A truth you silenced. But now, these emotions do not feel frightening. They feel healing because they are finally seen. The heart does not want you to resist emotions. The heart wants you to feel them fully so they can pass through you instead of living inside you. You see clearly now. Heaviness is trapped emotion. Emotion that was never allowed to move. Emotion that froze inside the chest. Because life did not give you a safe moment to feel. Now, this moment is safe. Now, your awareness is strong. Now, your heart feels held. You begin to realize something profound. You don't need to fix your heaviness. You only need to witness it. Witnessing is healing. Witnessing is releasing. Witnessing is returning. The heart begins to release the burden layer by layer. One memory softens. One wound opens and dissolves. One old belief collapses. One fear loosens its grip. You may feel warmth. You may feel tears. You may feel silence. All three are signs that the heart is healing. Healing does not require effort. Healing requires presence. And now you are present. As you go deeper, you realize something else. Some of your heaviness does not even belong to you. You carried the emotions of others, their fears, their expectations, their disappointments, their anger, their sadness. You carried their burdens because you were sensitive, because you cared too deeply, because you didn't want them to suffer. But you forgot one thing. Their pain is not your responsibility. Their healing is not your job. Their emotions are not your weight. Your heart became heavy because it carried too much that was never meant for it. And now, awareness is showing you the truth. You can care without caring. You can love without losing yourself. You can hold others without abandoning your own heart. This realization brings a new wave of lightness. You feel something inside you. Relax. A long-held tension begins to dissolve. A tightness begins to open. You begin to return the weight that was never yours, not by force, but by understanding. Understanding is the greatest release. The moment you understand that something is not yours to carry, your heart stops holding it. This is the inner clearing you have been waiting for. This is the moment the heaviness begins to break. Not suddenly, but naturally, like ice melting in the warmth of sunlight. You begin to feel space inside you again. A space that breathes. A space that feels light, a space that feels alive. This space is your true self. This space is your healing. This space is your freedom. As the inner space within you expands and the heaviness begins to loosen its grip, a new awareness rises, an awareness so gentle and subtle that you may miss it if you are not fully present. It is the awareness of lightness. At first, you do not recognize it because you have lived with emotional weight for so long that lightness feels unfamiliar. But slowly, as you breathe into your heart and remain present with yourself, you begin to feel something new inside you, a softness, a warmth, a quiet ease. This ease is not the absence of emotion. This ease is the acceptance of emotion. The heart becomes light not when pain disappears, but when resistance disappears. You begin to realize that the heaviness inside you was created not by the emotions themselves, but by your struggle against them. Every time you avoided feeling, the weight increased. Every time you resisted sadness, the pressure grew. Every time you pushed away loneliness, the heart tightened. But now, as you allow everything to be exactly as it is, the heart feels safe enough to release what it has held for years. Safety is the doorway to release. And now, for the first time, the heart feels safe. Safe because you are present. Safe because you are listening. Safe because you are not running anymore. This safety brings a deep shift. The heart stops protecting itself and starts opening itself. And as the heart opens, truth begins to flow. You begin to see clearly the truths your heart has been holding. You were hurt deeper than you admitted. You were tired longer than you expressed. You were strong longer than you should have been. You carried others more than they ever carried you. You gave more than you received. You forgave more than you healed. You stayed longer than you should have stayed. You silenced yourself when you needed someone to hear you. These truths are not here to make you sad. They are here to free you. The heart becomes heavy when truth is hidden. The heart becomes light when truth is seen. And now you are seeing. You begin to see that the weight inside you was never a sign of weakness. It was a sign of sensitivity. It was a sign that you felt deeply. It was a sign that you cared deeply. It was a sign that you loved deeply. The world does not always know how to hold deep hearts, but awareness does. Awareness holds your heart with tenderness, with compassion, with patience. This compassion does not come from outside. It blossoms from within. It comes from you. It comes from your own emotional maturity. It comes from your willingness to meet your inner world without fear. And when self-compassion enters the heart, the healing becomes effortless. You begin to forgive yourself for all the times you tried to be strong, for all the times you hid your pain, for all the times you abandoned your own needs, for all the times you remained silent to keep the peace, for all the moments you ignored your heart just to make others comfortable. Forgiveness melts heaviness faster than anything else. You start understanding that you were doing the best you could with the awareness you had. You survived because you had to. You carried the weight because there was no one to share it with. You stayed silent because it was safer than speaking. You suppressed your feelings because expressing them felt dangerous. But now, you are no longer that version of yourself. That version of you lived in survival. This version of you is living in awareness. Awareness gives you something survival never could. Choice. You can choose to release. You can choose to feel. You can choose to heal. You can choose to let go. You can choose to stop carrying the emotional weight that was never meant to be lifelong. And with every small choice toward awareness, the heaviness inside you continues to dissolve. You begin to notice moments of lightness. When you breathe a little deeper, when you sit a little softer, when you think a little clearer, when you feel a little freer. These moments are not accidents. They are signs that the heart is healing. Healing is not a sudden event. Healing is a slow untying of emotional knots. Healing is a gentle melting of frozen feelings. Healing is a quiet return to your original nature. Peaceful, soft, loving. The more you heal, the more you begin to feel like yourself again. Not the version of you shaped by pain, but the version of you before the pain. The version of you who could trust. The version who could feel. The version who could breathe fully. The version who could love without fear. The version who could live without heaviness. This version of you is not gone. It is only buried. And now it is returning. You begin to feel a new inner strength, not the strength of holding everything together, but the strength of finally letting things fall that were never yours to carry. A strength born from softness, a strength born from truth, a strength born from inner peace. You no longer fear what you feel. You no longer run from your heart. You no longer abandon yourself. You stand inside your own being, present, awake, alive. And this presence is freedom. This presence is healing. This presence is lightness. Your heart is not heavy anymore. Your heart is opening. Your heart is awakening. Your heart is returning home. As your heart continues to open and the heaviness continues to dissolve, a new kind of clarity begins to emerge. It is not a mental clarity, not something that comes from thinking or analyzing. It is a clarity that comes from the heart. Earlier, your heart was covered with layers of silence, layers of old emotions, layers of forgotten memories. But now, as those layers begin to melt, you start seeing yourself with honesty for the first time. This clarity is gentle but powerful. You begin to see that much of your heaviness came from resisting who you truly are. You forced yourself into roles that never fit you. You tried to be strong when you needed softness. You tried to be silent when you needed expression. You tried to be calm when you needed to cry. You tried to be stable when your soul needed to break open. And this breaking open was not a collapse. It was a transformation. You realize now that your emotional weight was never asking you to fix yourself. It was asking you to feel yourself. Because the heart heals through feeling. The mind heals through understanding. But the soul heals through acceptance. You begin to accept the parts of you that you once rejected. The tender part, the emotional part, the sensitive part, the vulnerable part, the part of you that feels deeply, the part of you that loves intensely, the part of you that breaks easily, the part of you that cares silently. These parts are not flaws. These parts are gifts. Your sensitivity is your strength. Your emotional depth is your intelligence. Your vulnerability is your doorway to connection. Your tenderness is your true power. The world may not always understand these qualities, but your soul understands them deeply. And now that awareness is present, you begin to embrace these parts instead of rejecting them. You begin to see that you do not have to be unfeeling to be strong. You do not have to be numb to be mature. You do not have to be hard to survive. Real strength is the strength to remain soft in a world that teaches hardness. This is the moment when you understand a profound truth. Your heart never wanted to be strong. Your heart wanted to be free. Free to feel, free to express, free to rest, free to love, free to break and heal, free to exist without pretending. And now, as the heart begins to feel this freedom, another layer of heaviness falls away. You begin to understand that heaviness was not your enemy. It was your teacher. It taught you what needed attention. It showed you what needed healing. It revealed what was suppressed. It guided you inward. It pushed you toward awareness. You realize now that without heaviness, you would have never slowed down. You would have never looked inside. You would have never listened to your soul. You would have never healed the buried wounds. Heaviness was the doorway, not the destination. And now you are stepping through it. You begin to notice something new. Your breath feels different. It feels deeper. It feels softer. It feels more natural. You realize that your breath was holding your unspoken pain. Every shallow breath was a memory. Every tight breath was a fear. Every heavy breath was a burden. Now, as the heart opens, the breath opens with it. With every inhale, you feel life returning. With every exhale, you feel the past releasing. With every breath, you feel the mind softening. Breath is the bridge between the body and the soul. And now, the bridge is clear again. You begin to feel grounded. Not grounded in the world, but grounded in yourself. Earlier, your sense of stability came from people, from situations, from relationships, from achievements. But now stability is coming from within. It is coming from awareness. It is coming from presence. It is coming from understanding. This inner stability is unshakable. It does not depend on others. It does not depend on circumstances. It does not depend on the future. It simply exists. This is the peace the heart has been longing for. As you rest in this peace, memories begin to rise. Memories of times when you abandoned yourself. Times when you said yes just to avoid conflict. Times when you kept quiet because your voice felt small. Times when you stayed in situations that drained you. Times when you tolerated what hurt you. Times when you hid your truth to be accepted. Times when you carried pain just to make others comfortable. These memories rise not to shame you, but to free you. Because the moment you see these patterns, you no longer repeat them. Clarity creates freedom. And now, clarity is unfolding inside you like a sunrise. Slow, beautiful, illuminating everything it touches. You begin to understand that your heart became heavy because you lived too far away from your own truth. Now, you are returning to your center, returning to your breath, returning to your emotional honesty, returning to your inner peace, returning to your original nature, simple, silent, aware. In this returning, you discover something you had forgotten. You are capable of lightness, not temporary happiness, not forced positivity, not fake strength. Lightness that comes from truth, lightness that comes from self-compassion, lightness that comes from emotional freedom, lightness that arises naturally when the heart is no longer carrying the weight of the past. This lightness is not loud, it is silent. It is still, it is soft. It does not dance on the surface. It glows from within. You begin to notice this glow. It may be faint at first, but it is real. It is warm. It is alive. This is the glow of someone who has faced their own darkness and chosen awareness instead of fear. This is the glow of someone who has returned to themselves. This glow is your rebirth. As the lightness continues to grow inside you, another dimension slowly begins to reveal itself. It is deeper than emotion and quieter than thought. It is understanding that the heaviness you carried was never just emotional, it was spiritual. It was the weight of forgetting yourself, the weight of living disconnected from your inner being, the weight of living a life shaped more by expectations than awareness. And now that you are reconnecting with yourself, you begin to feel something you may not have felt in years. Inner alignment. Alignment is not a feeling of excitement. Alignment is a feeling of ease, a soft yes inside the heart, a natural flow in your breath, a quiet sense that life is no longer pushing against you. Instead, it begins to move with you. Earlier, even simple things felt heavy because you were living from your mind. The mind complicates everything. The mind adds weight to every decision. The mind judges every feeling. The mind keeps comparing, analyzing, doubting, and this constant inner noise creates spiritual exhaustion. But now, as awareness grows, the noise begins to fade. You start noticing the difference between the voice of the mind and the voice of the heart. The mind speaks loudly. The heart speaks softly. The mind pushes. The heart invites. The mind demands. The heart guides. The mind creates pressure. The heart creates peace. This is the first sign of inner alignment. You begin to hear your heart clearly again. And the heart has been waiting for this moment. It has been waiting to tell you truths that you were not ready to hear before. Truths that dissolve heaviness. Truths that bring freedom. One of the first truths your heart reveals is this: you do not need to carry the world on your shoulders. You have spent years trying to hold everything together, trying to be strong for everyone, trying to fix situations beyond your control, trying to protect people from their own struggles, trying to act stable even when your own heart was trembling. But now awareness shows you the truth. You were never meant to carry so much. Life never asked you to be the savior. Life never asked you to be the strong one. Life never asked you to pretend you were invincible. These were roles you picked up because you were afraid of being vulnerable. Now, as that fear melts, you finally see that vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is your doorway to authenticity. As the heart becomes more authentic, a new feeling awakens inside you. The feeling of coming back into your own energy. Earlier, you were living too much in the energy of others. You felt their emotions more than your own. You carried their pain more than your own truth. You absorbed their fear, their anxiety, their expectations, and slowly you lost the sense of where they ended and you began. This loss of inner boundaries creates deep heaviness. But now, awareness brings you back into yourself. You begin to differentiate between what is yours and what is not. You begin to pull your energy back from the past, from old relationships, from old wounds, from old responsibilities, from old attachments. Every time you withdraw your energy from something that drained you, the heart becomes lighter. This lightness is not temporary. It is the natural state of a heart that is no longer carrying unnecessary weight. As you go deeper, another truth arises. Your heart becomes heavy when you resist change. Everything in life changes. People, situations, relationships, dreams, identities. And every time you hold on to something that is ready to evolve, the heart begins to feel burdened. Not because the change is painful, but because resistance is painful. Now that awareness is present, your resistance begins to dissolve. You stop forcing what is ending. You stop chasing what is leaving. You stop holding on to what has already completed its purpose. A quiet acceptance begins to bloom. Not acceptance through logic, but acceptance through understanding. Understanding that life does not take anything from you that your soul still needs. Understanding that endings are not punishments, they are transformations. Understanding that letting go is not loss. It is space. Space for new experiences. Space for new emotions. Space for a new version of yourself. Space for peace. And now, this peace begins to deepen. You feel it in the way you breathe. You feel it in the way you sit. You feel it in the way your heart no longer trembles with old fears. You feel it in the way your mind stops searching for explanations. You feel it in the quiet moments when you realize you are safe within yourself. This safety is the end of heaviness. A heart that feels safe becomes light. A heart that feels seen becomes open. A heart that feels understood becomes free. you begin to understand that the heaviness was only a message reminding you that you lost touch with yourself. A message reminding you that you needed to slow down. A message reminding you that you needed to feel. A message reminding you that you needed to return inward. And now you have returned. You have come home to your own being. You have sat with your heart without fear. You have listened to your inner truth without denial. You have allowed the heaviness to show you what it carried.